Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us for this 1-hour code breaker. As you get settled, a few reminders before we get started. AIA California sincerely acknowledges the professional expertise our volunteer presenters provide. We greatly appreciate the diversity of perspectives and recognize that items presented in today's session may elicit a variety of responses. We strongly encourage attendees to be constructive in their comments and questions to the presenters and to one another to ensure we have a session that is productive and an environment that is a positive learning experience for everyone. Additionally, please do not use the chat box to ask questions for today's panelists. Instead, use the Q&A. With the Q&A feature, attendees can like a question to move it to the top of the queue. And as always, the webinar content and additional resources will be available online shortly after the session. Today's webinar, which will focus on requirements in California's 2022 Single-Family Energy Code for indoor and outdoor lighting, luminaries, and controls, is brought to you by Energy Code ACE. It qualifies for one AIA HSW learning unit for those watching live, which AIA California will report for you once you have finished the session in full. Now, to quickly introduce our presenter. Gina Rodda is currently the principal owner of Gabel Energy in Castro Valley, California, and has been in the energy modeling field since 1991. Gina is the instructor of several dozen full-day Energy Code ACE trainings on the residential and non-residential Title 24, Part 6, Building Energy Efficiency Standards for building department staff, energy consultants, engineers, and architects. She is also a certified energy analyst, LEED accredited professional, and Title 24 energy analyst, performing a wide range of responsibilities in both residential and non-residential construction pertaining to compliance standards and energy modeling, and is a respected subject matter expert informing the statewide code development process. Now on to today's presentation. Welcome, Gina, and thank you so much for being here today. Please take it away.
Thank you. And let me just get it where I am sharing my screen. Oops. You have it set up where participants, oh wait, now I can try it again. Now it is working. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, I am.
Excellent. So let's get started right into this. So again, my name is Gina Rodda. We've got all the basics of what we're going to be talking about today. And our learning objectives were already brought up on your screen. So I'm just going to go straight through to that so that we can get you guys done on time within this particular time period that we have. Energy Code ACE, I'm pretty sure most of you have already experienced Energy Code ACE because I've been doing a lot of these sessions with you guys over the last many years. But we do have 3 buckets. In our tools bucket, what might be of interest here is our reference H, which is the code language itself. And I'd also like to point out Q&As, which is where a lot of questions are put in by the industry with answers that have been vetted by the professionals, including the Energy Commission, so that you could be looking to see, hey, did someone already ask this question? And is there already a great answer that I can use and share with my design team, my building department, and others? We are also going to support what other trainings we have that support single-family lighting and as it applies to multifamily buildings and hotel-motel projects. We are in the process of still updating all of our resources for the 2022 code cycle. This code cycle is such a heavy lift, but the residential lighting fact sheet was one of the first ones we got done and is currently available on our website, and I'll share a link to that towards the end of this presentation. And we hope that you will join us. Everything that we have on our website is at no cost because it is paid for by the ratepayers of California. So I like to tell people, you've invested already, come use your investment. So the basics about the Energy Code, hopefully all of you are aware that these requirements will apply for projects that apply for permit as of January 1st of this year. It's not based on when it's approved. It's not based on when you start construction. It's based on when you apply for that building permit originally. So you might want to be double checking when you're talking about your projects and any changes you might be doing to your lighting systems and confirm which code cycle is applicable for that project. Now, there are some big changes in this 2022 code regarding the organization of the Energy Code. In the previous code cycle, the 2019 code cycle, we had the book, that whole book was broken down into 2 major categories: single family, low-rise multifamily, and duplexes were all in the chapters called low-rise residential. And then we had another section that had high-rise residential, hotel, motel, and non-residential buildings. Well, they changed that with this code cycle. And the single family chapters are what used to be called the low-rise residential chapters. And the single family chapters is what will apply to single family, accessory dwelling units associated with single family, duplexes, and townhomes of any size. Now, what's unique about the dwelling unit lighting requirements of the Energy Code as they may apply to multifamily buildings, of which there's whole new chapters that never existed before, of where all the multifamily information now lives in the Energy Code. But one thing to be aware of is the lighting requirements for the dwelling units of a multifamily building and the lighting requirements associated with hotel motel rooms are based on the single family requirements. So dwelling units and single family buildings have the same exact lighting requirements for the dwelling units. Hotel motel is very, very, very similar, though there are some differences in terms of which controls need and which lights need to be controlled how. We at Energy Code ACE use these three symbols to help represent all mandatory requirements in the red and with the Gabel. These are mandatory requirements that were found to be cost effective for all 16 climate zones in California and for all scopes of work. Prescriptive measures are found to be cost effective based on climate zone and based on scope of work, and things will differ and change, and it's also a compliance method. The performance approach allows you to trade prescriptive measures as low as mandatory minimums, never lets you trade mandatory minimums. And one thing to be aware of for single family lighting is all of the lighting requirements are mandatory. So there is no flexibility measures associated with single family lighting. You have to meet all of the requirements as they apply in their entirety without any flexibility, either with the performance approach or using the prescriptive approach. So at the end of the day, we're getting our compliance documentation. And what's unique about mandatory measures is they are not integrated into our prescriptive forms, the CF1Rs, nor are they incorporated into our performance forms, the CF1R PERF form. It is expected that you, the designer, is very aware of what the mandatory requirements are and that you're integrating them into your drawing sets appropriately. We do have some note blocks available through Energy Code ACE that allows you to develop what is the scope of your project and how the mandatory measures should be supported in your design documents, that if you're not feeling comfortable with putting note blocks together yourself, you might want to get started with those note block tools that we have available at Energy Code ACE. So I have a question for you guys. When will you have to show compliance to the 2022 code cycle? What is that date that you apply for permit that triggers the 2022 code? Excellent. I've got Michael answering, and I don't know if anyone is answering in the chat just because I don't have the ability to open up the chat at this time. Let me see. I can open it up, and you guys are all doing great. That is going to be B. That's projects that applied for permit as of January 1st of this year. It's called the 2022 code cycle because that is when the code was adopted. It was when it was approved to be enforced as of January of the following year. So you will find historically, like the 2019 code cycle went into effect January 1st of 2020. And that's why our 2022 code cycle went into effect January 1st of 2023. So what is being regulated? So there's layers of regulation in California. We don't seem to be able to do things simply when it comes to government regulation anywhere in the United States. And we have things that are regulated through Title 24 Part 6, which is the building code. So the triggers to the requirements in the Energy Code is because we are applying for permit to a building department or another authority having jurisdiction, which may be like with schools, it would be DSA, et cetera, and so forth. Who is that authority? When we apply to that authority because of our project scope, that triggers the building code, of which the Energy Code is part of. We also have in California appliance standards. Now, appliance standards are triggered based on that product being built to be sold and installed in California. And who enforces Title 20, our appliance standards, is the Energy Commission. And this enforcement is between the Energy Commission and the manufacturers and the distributors that are selling these products in California to be installed. I do think, though, it's very important that you, the designers, are aware of the Title 20 requirements as they apply to lighting, so that you understand the subtlety of associated with projects that trigger the energy code because you go for a permit versus when you go to the store and buy something that is associated with a permitted project versus you are buying something because you are going to replace a light bulb in your existing lamp that you have on your table. So we're going to take a look at what happens when we are triggering the energy code associated with a building permit. So the building code is full of many different parts. The energy code is just one of them. It's always kind of funny when I hear people say, yeah, Title 24 documents. I'm like, oh, I'm only going to provide you documents for Part 6. I'm not going to help you with the rest of the code. And we have various chapters associated with the code book. And we already talked about how we have these brand new chapters, subchapters 10, 11, and 12 that are associated with multifamily, knowing that the mandatory lighting requirements for dwelling units that are in chapter 10 look exactly like the requirements we'll see in subchapter 7, as it is associated with the mandatory requirements of single family lighting. The energy code will apply to anything that is hardwired installed. We are wiring that light fixture to the home. If it's something that we consider portable, we are plugging it into an outlet. That is not subject to the energy code requirements for single family lighting. That's not true for commercial lighting. Commercial lighting, portable lighting does count if it's designed in the design set. But for single family and dwelling unit lighting, it's only what is hardwired into the building or onto the building that is subject to these requirements. Now, Title 20 is going to be, we're going to talk about JA8 first. So Joint Appendices Chapter 8 is a subset of code language that's in a separate document than the energy standards themselves. So I've always had a joke that they created the reference appendices because they were too embarrassed to make the energy code even longer than it already is. But you will see that there are many instances in which the energy code language itself references to the reference appendices, including in the lighting section, it references Joint Appendices Chapter 8, which is a section of the reference appendices. And within this subchapter, it dictates the efficacy, start time, color rendering, accuracy, which not a lot of people love that the energy code is dictating, the dimmability requirements, the ability to have flicker paired properly with the dimmer controls, and that audible noise that we don't want to hear when we are dimming lights and when our lights are running. Now, within Title 20, now we've moved to the appliance standards and we've moved away from the energy code. The appliance standards have regulations for lamps and ballasts that are sold in California, that are sold to be installed within California. And there are federal regulations regarding lamps, and you'll see in this table, everything on the left-hand side are light sources that are regulated by the federal government. And California cannot preempt what is already required by the federal government, but they can provide requirements for things that are not regulated by the federal government, and that's on the right-hand side of this table. And I just really want to point out that we have state-regulated LED lamps and state-regulated small diameter directional lamps that are typically associated with track lighting systems. And this is anytime I go to the store and buy an LED lamp, it has to meet the Title 20 regulations of California. But I only have to meet the Joint Appendices requirements, the JA8 requirements for lighting when it's a project that's associated with a permit. So you're going to go to the hardware store and you're going to see products that are stamped JA8. Great. You can use that for a permitted project. You can use that because you're changing the light bulb in your table lamp. Now, anything you buy to change that light bulb in your table lamp and also what's going into your building because it's with a permit has to be Title 20 certified. And that is the responsibility of the manufacturer. And there isn't a particular stamp on there that's going to tell you that that product has been certified to the CEC as a state regulated Title 20 product. We do have a fact sheet on this about what are the differences between JA8, Title 20, and Title 24 Part 6. And all of this, currently our fact sheet is labeled 2016-2019, but there are very minor differences for the requirements for 2022. We will be going live with the 2022 updated fact sheet probably next month, but I do feel this 2019 fact sheet does an excellent job explaining what's going on because very little has changed. And what I love about this fact sheet, it outlines what are the major differences between Title 20 versus JA8. It also talks, and then it goes on and on about what is then required for our state regulated lamps versus those small directional lamps, general service lamps, and then what we're seeing in California for Joint Appendices Chapter 8. Someone's asking how are low voltage systems addressed in the code. Hold on to that because there is some new code language associated with low voltage systems as they are associated with single family construction. Now, a couple of years ago, there was a time lapse over when some of these requirements were in play. That's not so much a big deal anymore because we are way past these dates and everything is fully functioning the way it should. And I do love this table that speaks to what is the overlap of these different requirements and when do you have to think about one requirement versus another, and what are the roles that we have in assuring compliance to these regulations. And you'll see that you do have a role in confirming that your specifications are supporting not just Title 24 Part 6 and the JA8 requirements, but also the federal Title 20 federal and Title 20 requirements. Okay, and all of our fact sheets have all sorts of stuff about additional information and so forth that we like to try and provide easy links to so that you can go further in researching this information yourself. So the key differences between Title 20 and Title 24, Part 6, JA8 requirements. Title 20 is all about when the product is manufactured to be sold in California, is regulated by the Energy Commission to the manufacturers and to the distributors. Title 24, Part 6 only will apply when it's a project that is subject to a building permit, and it is applicable to those hardwired systems within the single family home. Now, what does Title 24 Part 6 say about lighting? Well, let's dive into that. And first of all, it says that all residential lighting must be high efficacy, and that high efficacy is supported with LED lamp sources with the JA8 requirements. An LED lamp can be great, an LED lamp can be crap. And how we make sure we're meeting the high efficacy requirements with LED sources is because they're meeting the JA8 requirements for the permitted project. Let's take a look at what we consider automatically high efficacy. You don't have to worry about the JA8 certification. Pin-based fluorescent, for as long as those might be available for us, because we do know the federal government is phasing those out, but currently we can use those. And if they are pin-based, go for it. I don't think we have anything that has magnetic ballast anymore. This is associated with products that are with electronic ballast. Now, this one's a little sticky to understand. If you have LED luminaires that have different colors associated with them, and you're going to use it in that colored format for a decorative lighting purpose only. This is not task lighting. If we're using a light source that can be many different colors and we're choosing to use it in that white color because it's a task lighting system, it is going to be subject to the JA8 requirements. But if it's going to be colored and I'm using it for toe kick lighting to surround my TV or my shelving on my walls because I want everyone to see it, and it's not task lighting where I actually have to see myself doing something, well, then that does not need to be JA8 certified. Ceiling fan light kits are regulated by the federal government, and because of that, they are automatically high efficacy and are not subject to the J8 requirements of California code. When we turn to outdoor lighting, if we're using pulse start metal halide or high pressure sodium HID light sources, which are really starting to not happen at all anymore, but if that is happening, I find that it's more often with small duplexes or small multifamily projects. Those are automatically high efficacy and do not need to be JA8 certified. And if you ever see an elusive induction lamp out in the field, out in the wild, that is automatically high efficacy. I have never seen one personally and touched one myself. And here's another sticky one. If you are using an LED light source and installing it outside, not including a recessed luminaire, it's anything other than a recessed luminaire, and it's an LED outdoor light fixture, it is automatically high efficacy. Now let's talk about what needs to be JA8 certified. So the JA8 requirements are all about doing the efficacy, a good quality of light, it has good color, it can meet the full dimmability requirements we have in California down to 10%. And I personally 100% love the flicker and audible noise requirements of the JA8 products. Any luminaire, LED luminaire that's in a white color, remember we've talked colored and it's just for decorative, it doesn't have to be JA8. If it's white and it's task lighting, it's not decorative, it does need to be JA8. Any screw-based LED lamp must be marked JA8. Pin-based LED lamps, remember fluorescent was automatically high efficacy. LED lamps must be marked JA8. Recessed ceiling downlights, no matter their location, whether it's indoors, whether it's outdoors, must be JA8 certified. Anything I didn't list, I love these catch-all phrases in the energy code, will have to be JA8 certified. Brad is asking, how are the regulations addressing restoration, renovation of existing structures regarding legacy construction? Is it only limited to areas of improvement? If we are doing historic qualified projects, any replica light fixtures to support the historic qualified status of the building are exempt to these requirements per section 100.0. So if you're doing historic projects that are historic qualified projects, there is an exception to meeting these requirements. If you are doing something of which it is not considered a historic qualified project, and you're just trying to match the look and feel of a 1940s building, there are no exceptions for that. It is tied to that historic qualification. Okay. In our fact sheet that we do have available, we do have a version of this table without all the pretty pictures I just showed you that help remind you what's going on in terms of JA8 versus automatically high efficacy. Now, there are some exceptions to light fixtures within the energy code that don't have to meet the high efficacy requirements. We just talked about the historic qualified historic replica fixtures that would be exempt. Also, any lighting that's integrated into an exhaust fan, into a kitchen range hood, brand new to this code, integrated bathroom vanity mirrors where the lighting is integrated into the mirror. Yay, I was so excited to see that for this code cycle. Brand new for this code cycle, garage door openers that have that integrated light source within the garage door opener. And as we saw, ceiling fans, because they are subject to the federal requirements and we don't get to double dip on regulation, all of those integrated light sources within these appliance features are exempt to the high efficacy requirements of the energy code. Navigation lighting, here they decided to make things a little bit tricky. If it's a night light, a step light or a path light, and I don't care if it's indoors or outdoors, as long if it's attached to the building, and if it uses less than 5 watts, don't worry about it having to be certified as JA8. But the minute it's 5 or more watts, it does need to be JA8 certified. So that makes it where you have to know what is the wattage of the night light, step light, and path light. And if it's 5 watts or greater, it has to be JA8 certified. Less than 5 watts, it does not. Now, what they decided to do with cabinet lighting is base it on lumens per watt. So for lighting within drawers, cabinetry, and linen closets, that was brand new to this code cycle, you do not have to worry about JA8 requirements if you can prove it uses 45 lumens per watt or less, or just use something that's JA8 certified. And the minute it's over 45 lumens per watt, then it must be JA8 certified. Recessed downlights cannot include screw-based sockets. Now, a lot of times they come with these different pins, and one of your options you could have connected is a screw-based. Toss that out over your shoulder. You're not going to use that one. You're going to use the pin-based ones. Screw-based is not an option for new can lights. You can keep them for can lights you're retaining and moving around within a remodel, but you don't get to use them for brand new can lights. We do always want to meet the health and safety requirements of the electrical code, so those are still going to fully be in play. And this is an enclosed light source, and because of that, the JA8 marking we want to be looking for is JA8-E for enclosed or elevated temperatures. It's going to last a good long time with the fact that it is retaining a lot of heat because of the nature of the beast. The other thing I want to point out is that we can use anything that has been certified under the 2016 code, the 2019 code, and the 2022 code for our projects as of now. So if you find something you love that's marked JA8 2016, yay, use it. If you want to use something that's been certified just in the last couple of months and it's marked JA8 2022, well, that works too. It doesn't have to be marked JA8 2022, it can be 2016, 2019, or 2022. We do want to make sure that we're using can lights that cans that are ICAT rated, except for they did change some language regarding where you have to use those. You do not have to use those. Let me see here. You don't have to use them in unconditioned spaces or in ceilings that do not have the fire rating requirements, of which ICAT is something that's going to be required by the electrical code. So there was some leniency because in 2019, every single can light anywhere, I don't care where it was, had to be ICAT rated, and they backed down from that. Again, we get to use anything marked 2016, 2019, or 2022 for this code cycle. And if it's going to be in an enclosed light fixture, we do want to make sure we are specifying and using products that are tested to work in that environment and end with a -E. So how are we making sure we have compliance? We're going to make sure the manufacturer's doing their end of things and that they're self-certifying their products is meeting these requirements. And they are required to then put markings on the light fixtures themselves. There are no regulations about marking the product boxes or packaging. They can do whatever they want on the packaging. The state cannot regulate that. What the state regulates is that they mark JA8- whatever code cycle, and -E if it's appropriate for an enclosed elevated temperature environment, and that's the only thing that is standardized. A testing lab is going to help support the manufacturers confirm their products meet these requirements. You, the designer, are going to make sure that your design documents and specifications are including good note blocks and good information about what controls are required where and what light sources are considered appropriate in meeting the energy code, because this is a permit triggering event. The builder is going to make sure they're only buying products that are meeting the requirements, as they will be documenting themselves with their installation forms that they are aware of these requirements and they installed what they were supposed to. And this is also supposed to include a fixture schedule of everything that they installed so that the homeowner can go out and buy it themselves so that they can keep that same light source, keep the same color, be happy, et cetera, and so forth. And I don't know if you guys have experienced the joy of the MABES database, Modernized Appliance Efficiency Database, which is where all the JA8 products are listed by manufacturer and model number. But go ahead and join the fun and do it someday and see the thousands upon thousands of products that have been certified as JA8 compliant. Now, I said that the contractors have an installation form. I love this installation form, and I think all of us should look at it as a checklist to make sure our designs are meeting the requirements, because they really laid this out in a beautiful way of, hey, let's make sure your light sources are good. Let's say make sure your controls are good. Let's make sure that install is meeting the code. So when are the JA8 requirements going to be applicable? What do you guys think? Feel free to put this into the chat so we don't clog up the Q&A. When do you think, when are the JA8 certification requirements of which that product must be marked JA8 code cycle? When is that going to be required? That is going to be excellent, everyone, when it is subject to a building permit. If you're going to the store and buying it, you don't have to worry about JA8 because you're replacing the light bulb in your table lamp. That's Title 20, and that's going to be between the manufacturer and the Energy Commission. You're going to only make sure it's marked JA8 when it's associated with a permitted project. JA8 certified products can be used for this current code cycle when they are marked how? What do we have to look for? What can be used for this 2022 code cycle? You guys are so on it. Yep, that's going to be all of the above are 100% appropriate for this code cycle. Now let's go into our control basics. Location matters. So I've had a couple of questions here about what happens with kitchens and bathrooms. Is there something different there? Now we're going to start talking about spaces of the building and what is required for that space type. So my bathrooms, laundry rooms, utility rooms, and walk-in closets and garages. What's new to this list is walk-in closets. Those rooms within the building, one light source has to be controlled with an occupancy sensor, which can be an occupancy sensor that turns the light on when I walk in the room, but it turns the lights automatically off when I leave the room, or it could be a vacancy sensor where I walk in the room and I have to hit a switch for the light to turn on, but it will automatically turn the lights off. So this code cycle, what's new is they're saying, you know what, use whatever type of occupancy sensor you want, as long as it does auto off. You decide how it actually turns the light fixture on. That's a new allowance for this 2022 code cycle. You don't have to consider a dimmer for any other light fixtures in this room because it's not a habitable space. Oh, now why is that important, Gina? Because we have new requirements that habitable spaces, this is brand new for 2022, habitable spaces have to use dimmers. These spaces, bathroom, laundry, utility room, walk-in closets, and garages are not habitable spaces, but I am saying one fixture will be controlled with an occupancy sensor. You do whatever you want for all the other lights. For my habitable spaces, all the lights will be on a dimmer unless you'd like to use an occupancy sensor. If you want to use an occupancy sensor, well, that's a choice. Now let's start talking about how low voltage lighting has some different requirements. So you don't have to do a dimmer with a low voltage circuit. That the intent is to support a low voltage lighting system less than 20 watts. They don't always work well with dimmers. And we want to make sure that we're supporting health and safety and that nothing explodes on us and causes a fire. So low voltage lighting can be controlled with just an on-off switch, will not have to be controlled with a dimmer because of these new requirements. So you can, in all habitable rooms, use a dimmer. You can use an occupancy sensor, and for your low voltage circuits, you can do an on-off switch. Now, here's examples of many habitable spaces. If there's one group I talk to who understands the definition, it's habitable space, but I gotta tell you, I have a lot of other groups that don't. So there are lots of examples of habitable space and when that would be subject to the dimming requirements. What are some areas I didn't talk about yet that are not habitable and don't have to meet the occupancy sensor control requirement for one light fixture? Hallways, do whatever you want. Attics, do whatever you want, though I think an occupancy sensor is smart for an attic. Closets that are not walk-in closets, do whatever you want. Detached storage buildings that are not a garage, do whatever you want. We only have requirements for laundry rooms, utility rooms, walk-in closets, garages and bathrooms and habitable spaces. Everything else no longer has requirements in terms of specific controls. Let's now talk about layers of lighting within a space. Under cabinet lighting, under shelf lighting, and lighting within a display case, and switched outlets, I don't quite understand why they added switch outlets in this particular code cycle, have to be switched separately from any other lighting within the space. So if I have overhead lighting and under cabinet lighting, they're going to be at least 2 switches, and they will have to be dimmers. Let's say here I have a picture of a kitchen. That's a habitable space. That lighting will be on a dimmer, and or I could use an occupancy sensor, which I do not think is a great idea for a kitchen. Under shelf lighting, I don't care where it is in the home, you're going to switch it separately from any other lighting. That display case lighting, this actually excites me because in the 2019 code cycle, all lighting in cabinets had to be on an auto shut off control, that when you shut the door, it would shut the light off. But when I had a glass fronted cabinet and I want to see my pretty things in there, I couldn't leave the light on. So that's great that we got this new requirement that they're saying, no, you don't have to do auto shut off for the lighting in a display case, meaning it's not an opaque fronted cabinet door. We still have the requirement that if we have blank electrical boxes, of which we can only have as many anywhere in the home as we have bedrooms. So if it's a studio apartment, you get 1. If it's a single family ADU, you get 1. If it's a single family home with 5 bedrooms, you get 5. And you can put them wherever you want. And this only applies to those blank electrical boxes that are greater than 5 feet from the finished floor. And we're going to have to choose what control we'd like to put in place for whatever might be attached to that later on. You can choose a dimmer. You can use that occupancy sensor. You can say it's going to be low voltage wiring and make sure it's less than 20 watts, and you can use an on-off switch, or you can use a fan speed control because this is on the ceiling and it's for a future ceiling fan. When we have ceiling fans, we don't have to worry about the lighting in there to be high efficacy because it's already under the federal government. And this is where you can use a remote control for those fans for the lighting. I think that's funny because everyone loses the remote control and you'll never be able to turn those lights on or off again once you lose that remote control. But you too can lose your remote control for the lighting associated with a ceiling fan. Remember, lighting that's integrated into my exhaust fans and my kitchen hoods and my other garage door openers, mirrors, etc., don't have to meet the high efficacy requirements, but that lighting that's within those integrated features, pieces of equipment, must be able to be controlled separately from the other functions that appliance is meeting, such as exhaust fans. The fans has to be controlled separately from the lighting. When we talk about multi-family dwelling units, this is another way of saying everything we just talked about is going to apply exactly the same for multi-family dwelling units or apartments. Hotel motel rooms, things are a little bit differently, in which one high efficacy light fixture within 6 feet of the door getting into the hotel motel room can be on just an on-off switch. But all the other lighting that is hardwired in that hotel motel room must be on either a captive card key, an occupancy sensor, and any other type of automatic controls. I'm seeing a lot more energy management control systems being used for hotel motel rooms that can automatically turn that lighting off when no one is in the space, with the exception of that one light fixture within 6 feet of the door entering the hotel motel room. Let's switch to outdoor lighting. So outdoor lighting requirements only apply to lighting that's attached to a building on the property. It's attached to a garage. It's attached to a shed. It's attached to an ADU. It's attached to the home. It has to meet these requirements. It's attached to a pergola. It's attached to a fence. It's landscape lighting. It's attached to the ground. It does not have to meet these requirements. So what are these requirements? Well, we already talked about what the high efficacy lighting requirements were for outdoor lighting. LED of any type is considered high efficacy unless it's a recessed light, in which it does need to be JA8, or we can be using our fluorescent light fixtures. We will have to control it. We always need an on-off switch. Always, always, always. There was a code cycle, and I'm going to give anyone extra credit who can remember which code cycle allowed you to not have an on-off switch if you were controlling the outdoor light fixture with a occupancy sensor. Who can answer that? But this code and the last couple of codes have said you're going to do an on-off switch and one of the following. You choose. It's actually 2013. You guys were so close. John Chin got it. He gets the extra credit associated with that. So if you can use a photocell and a motion sensor, you can use a photocell and a time switch. You can use an astronomical time clock, and that's it. You can use an energy management control system that functions as any of the above features, control options. We want to make sure it's only turning on when it's dark, and it's only turning on when someone is there. And it could either be because it senses someone or because you set a schedule of this is the time of the night that it's going to be on, and maybe even at a reduced level for part of the night if we're using some of these more advanced controls. Just remember, if the outdoor lighting is not attached to a building, such as landscape lighting, such as pool lighting, it is not subject to any of the energy code requirements for residential outdoor lighting. Let's talk about parking garages. If my parking garage, if it handles 7 cars or less, well, remember we saw that in garages, at least one fixture had to be controlled with an occupancy sensor. Any other luminaires in the garage can be just controlled with an on-off switch, and we will have to meet the high efficacy requirements for those light sources, and that lighting integrated into the garage door opener is not does not have to meet the high efficacy requirements of the energy code. If my parking garage is 8 spaces or more, you have to meet the non-res requirements for enclosed spaces, in which we now care about the wattage, and we have a lot more control requirements. So if anyone is designing for bigger homes that are having parking garages of 8 or more parking spaces that can handle the vehicle spaces, you will have to meet the non-residential requirements of the code. Outdoor lighting, when it's associated with a multifamily building or a hotel motel building. If that light that's hanging on the outside of the building is controlled within the dwelling unit or hotel motel room, it has to meet all the requirements we just talked about for outdoor lighting. It has to meet the single family requirements for outdoor lighting. If it is not controlled from within the dwelling unit or hotel motel room, and it's controlled by back of house, well, then it has to meet the outdoor lighting requirements of the multifamily building requirements and or the non-residential requirements associated with hotel motel buildings. So I have a question for you. What lighting control is required at a minimum? I would say, based on this picture you're seeing, we have a beautiful kitchen going on here. In this kitchen, what do I have to provide in this kitchen? The kitchen is only going to require a dimmer. I can choose to use an occupancy sensor. That is a choice, but at a minimum for this kitchen, I have to provide dimmers. Okay, here I have a bathroom. What control do I have to provide at a minimum for this bathroom? Well, you guys have got it. Yes, that is A, An occupancy sensor will be required for one fixture in this bathroom. A dimmer will never be required because this is not a habitable space, but you can choose to do a dimmer. I want all my bathroom lighting on dimmers, by the way, especially where my bathtub is, where I can have mood lighting, because I much prefer reading my book with candles on while I'm taking my leisurely bath. So we had some questions here, and I'm going to want to make sure that I answer those. So we had someone say who asked, how is low voltage systems addressed? Let me know if you feel that your question has not been thoroughly answered. How the regulations addressing restoration renovations, I've already answered that one in terms of historic qualified projects. Do kitchens and bathrooms have additional requirements? We did go through that they have special, bathrooms have special lighting requirements. Kitchens have special, lighting control requirements, and kitchens have special control requirements, but they're different. A kitchen's habitable, it's a dimmer. A bathroom has to have at least one light fixture controlled with an occupancy sensor. Do these requirements apply to accessory structures such as detached garage, sheds, or other detached structures? If it's a building, yes, Scott. But if it's a structure such as a pergola, no. The energy code, when it talks about single family lighting, is all about buildings. What does J8 mean? J8 stands for Joint Appendices Chapter 8, because that's where you can find all of the requirements that apply to anything that is marked J8. Tim is asking, do you need to have a dimmer on a light outlet on a wall, non-hot outlet? So we saw that if you have a controlled outlet, you just have to make sure that's on a separate switch from any lighting within the space. Like, why wouldn't you do that anyway? That's the only requirements associated with outlets when we talk about this section of the code, is that switched outlets have to be switched separately from the lighting within that space. Jackie is asking, for those of us who are not AIA members, will be sent a certificate, and it sounds like Sarah is answering that question. Are there any other questions that you guys have before I wrap this up? We have a few more minutes. I guess I talked a little bit faster than I thought I would. And I'm going to go through these last few slides while you guys think if you have any more additional questions. We do have more training on what's new for the 2022 code cycle. We have one that's just covering residential buildings, and we have one that's covering non-residential occupancies, including hotel motel. We have a full day, well, it's not full day, it's a 4-hour class on residential standards in which we actually design a bunch of lighting designs for an example single family home and make sure that we're really fully comfortable with these requirements, and we dive a little bit deeper into those Title 20 requirements. Remember, we have this fact sheet. I'm hoping all of you will grab this from our website. Remember, everything is free, and I feel that we cover all of these requirements pretty thoroughly. If you want a quick reference to what's new for this code cycle, you might want to take a look at our What's New, which is a brief overview of the major things that are new for the code cycle, or our What's Changed that goes line by line through code of what has been altered or what is brand new. Timeline A's for any manufacturers that I might have out there. You might want to be really aware of what's going on with federal versus Title 20 versus Title 24. And for all of us in the Title 24 section of our Timeline Ace, it supports the code development of our next code cycle. The 2025 code cycle is being developed right now as we speak. And now would be the best time for you guys to have input on what you feel the next code cycle should reflect, because later on this year, it's going to be too difficult to incorporate changes requested by the public. Remember, Mabes is there for you. It's got so much there, it's not even funny. And signing up for an account on our Energy Code Ace website is the best way to explore our website. It allows you to save things as favorites. You can create your own curated list of things you like to go back to time and time again. And for those of you who also do energy compliance documentation, it allows you to create an account to create those documents and save them to your particular account name. So I'm going to go to the chat here where it looks like we have some additional questions. Jerry's asking, on remodels, if under 50% improvement, are you still subject to the energy code? The energy code says you've changed it. you're going to meet the code. You change one light associated with a building permit, you're going to meet the code. If you're not pulling a permit, and you should have, if you're not pulling a permit because you didn't have to, well, then you're not subject to these requirements. Oh, it looks like there might be some additional questions over here. Paul is asking, do under cabinet and in cabinet lights need to be on a dimmer as well as switched separately? It depends on where they're at, Paul. Is that under cabinet and in cabinet lighting in a habitable space? Then yes. If that's in a non-habitable space, let's say in a bathroom, then no. I have screw-based lamps are now allowed in all luminaires. Yeah, we went there with the 2013 code. It was exciting. You must not have been to one of our trainings in a while, because we've had quite a few code cycles now that have totally been okay with screw-based lamps as long as they are JA8 certified. Can an ADU only have a switched outlet for lamps? No, because an ADU, if it's let's say it's a studio ADU, that's habitable space and will have to be a dimmer. And in that little kitchen area, depending if you have a light that's in the little kitchen area of the ADU, it has to have, it's a dimmer. That bathroom, hopefully you don't have the bathroom open to the rest of the ADU, please. You're going to make sure that one light fixture in that ADU bathroom is controlled with an occupancy sensor. Someone's saying, I missed the first half of this presentation. It's being recorded. I think it is, but AIA California can help you more with that. Can you have more than one switched outlet on a switch? Yeah, it doesn't say that only one-to-one in terms of the switched outlet. So I do think that that would be okay, Jose, as long as the lighting is switched separately from all those outlets that you've got controlled with one switch. Does a garage have to have hardwired lighting under the 2019 code? Well, it's not the energy code that would have anything to say about that you have to have lighting in those spaces. I'm pretty sure the residential code has things to say about a garage, an enclosed garage, needing to have illumination so that people can see what they're doing. Can an ADU only have a switched outlet for lamp lighting? If you have no hardwired lighting in an ADU living room, bedroom, etc., fine, that works. Don't have to do anything. I don't know what the residential code has to say about that. I'd be shocked if the residential code is not going to require hardwired lighting for the kitchen and for the bathroom, of which then the energy code has something to say about it. Have the requirements for contractors become more time consuming for them? I think it's time consuming the first time, Donald, as they get up to speed on this. There's a learning curve for everyone, right? I had my kitchen remodeled a few months ago, and my contractor was trying to apply the 2013 code to my kitchen. I'm like, no, we're not doing that. We're going to make this code cycle that my permit is subject to, and let me help you get up to speed. So I find it becomes more time consuming only to get them up to speed, but I think these requirements are so much easier to understand and apply that it should make their job easier. On remodels, if under, okay, we already talked about that one. Do the new requirements add to the work of contractors? I've already answered that. What about motion detecting floodlights for outdoor security lights? Great, but it's also going to be on a photocell. If you want to use motion sensors for those floodlights that are attached to a building, you're also going to do photocell. What is net zero? It depends on what you're talking about. Is it net zero carbon, net zero energy? There's many different types of net zero. Camilla, you might need to tell me a little bit more about what you're asking for in terms of net zero. Where on the website are the fact sheets? In the resource section? Excellent question. You're going to go to resources, or you could just type into the search bar fact sheet, even right in there, lighting fact sheet, and it'll help and just help condense down and give you offerings that support what you're typing into the search bar. For our permit sets with A3 sheets, we typically add the UC Davis lighting sheets to cover lighting requirements. If they've been updated? I don't know. I love those, by the way. I mean, they did a beautiful job. I they're working on them. I don't think they're available yet. The best place to look is the CLTC website, California Lighting Technology Center, which is, that is the UC Davis that you're talking about. They would have them there. Like I said, I'm not sure if they have anything out for 2022 yet. Can an ADU be switched outlet only for them? I've already answered that one. And are you aware if they have updated? I'm not sure what you're talking about. Have I missed it? Is a kitchen a habitable space? Yes, per the residential code, kitchens are habitable spaces. Why are downloads required to be pin-based? It's just downloads are not allowed to be screw-based. I was saying that's one of the options you have out there, but they can't be screw-based. It has nothing to do with being pin-based. Zero net energy for the whole building. That is, there's again a couple of different definitions out there. There's zero net energy in which that site is using a certain amount of energy over the course of the entire year. And what do they have in terms of renewable energy sources such as photovoltaics, battery storage systems, wind generation, et cetera, that offsets the amount of energy that they're pulling from the grid. And if it's equal, they have as much on-site renewable over the course of the entire year as they're using, that's a zero net energy building. Now, buildings that are what we call mixed fuel, where they also have natural gas or propane gas, well, we don't have ways of doing renewable gas systems currently that I'm aware of. So usually with buildings that are also going to use propane or natural gas, we're going to take that energy use, convert it to electricity, and then upsize our photovoltaic panels to incorporate the gas use that's being used. And then that would also then support a zero net energy building. Is plan notes for single family available yet? If you're talking about the mandatory note block and mandatory summary sheet put out by the Energy Commission, yes, feel free to email me if you want me to give you the direct link for that, but that is available on the Energy Commission's website. And then the question is, why can't downloads be screw-based? It's because of how they reject heat, and it's going right into where we have our thermal barrier, and that's what we're trying to prevent by not having screw-based can lights that are penetrating the thermal barrier. And I thought you mentioned screw-based LED JA8 listed. Okay, that is not the case except for recessed lighting. Recessed lighting cannot use screw-based adapters because of the reasons already stated. Whew, how do we think? Do we got all of these answered? Does anyone feel like they are walking away without their question answered? Oh, Brian asked, the low voltage was regarding switching, efficacy requirements, low voltage lighting. If it's LED, it will have to be JA8 certified. And I don't know much low voltage lighting out there. Most people are not doing gosh, I'm blanking on the word, halogen. They're not using those anymore. They've gone to LED. Those will have to be JA8 certified. I'm going to make sure that you guys have a copy of the handout. I'll be sending that to AIA California, and they'll make sure that they get it to all of you who are answering. Someone said Ryan's question wasn't answered, and I'm just not sure, really, honestly, if I can find Ryan's question here. In residential, what is the percentage of change in a room that caused any change? When you talk about percentage of change, you're talking about commercial lighting requirements. Commercial lighting requirements are only triggered when 10% or more of the number of fixtures are changed in a room, but for residential lighting, it's for every fixture you're changing or adding. You don't have to do anything to your existing lights, but anything new or being altered, with the exception you do get to move those screw-based can lights around, you will have to meet these requirements. There's no percentage associated with that. Can you comment on the new Title 24 requirements regarding energy source? Source energy. It seems like the grid having only 26 to 28% green electronics, mean overbought on PV and efficacy. Not sure where you're getting your 26 to 28%, because last I heard most utilities here in California are up to 35 to 40%. So I'm not sure I can quite answer exactly what you're trying to get to, Nathaniel, with what you're trying to bring to the table. I'm hearing there's more questions in the chat, but I have to tell you guys I was asked to look in the Q&A. So if you want to move your questions into Q&A, I'd be happy to do that. Or Sarah is going to make sure she's going to send me all the questions I haven't answered yet so that we could do that offline, because it is officially 1 o'clock and you guys to get to go on with the rest of your day. Anything you want to do to wrap this up, Sarah?
Sure. Thank you guys, everyone, for being here. And thank you, big special thank you so much, Gina. You're amazing. Thank you so much for walking all of us through that. If you've made it this far, AI California will submit you for CE credit. If you have any questions regarding your education, CE, you can reach out to me or Rebecca Esteves, which I had put her email in the chat. Feel free to reach out to AI California and we will do our best to assist you. Thank you again, Gina, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day.
Bye, everyone.